All right, so today I'm going to do a 10 by 10 inch alla prima oil painting of some hills and some clouds. Okay, so I'm sketching in burnt sienna as usual, just thinning the burnt sienna with a little bit of mineral spirits. And then I'm going to scrub in approximate colors in the hills and then get started working on the clouds. And I'm just thinning, again, I'm thinning the paint with odorless mineral spirits and just trying to cover the hills with approximate colors. I'm just going to start with ultramarine and white and just kind of, I'm squinting and I've thinned the paint with a little bit of mineral spirits, but I'm also using a little bit of medium. And the medium I'm using is homebrew. And it's 1 part odorless mineral spirits, 1 part standard oil, 2 parts linseed oil. And I just mix it up and keep it in a bottle. Actually, I've got some right here. And I just put it in a palette cup. I'm not using a lot of it, I'm just using a little bit. And now, I think the photograph kind of artificially darkens the dark parts of the cloud, so I probably will make them lighter. But at first I want to just kind of sketch out where the dark areas of the clouds are, and then I can lighten them as I feel necessary as I go along. And I mean, the nice thing about clouds is they are very, just kind of like painting ocean, it's very abstracted, so I start off with what I see, but then I start experimenting and I'll change things just to make sure that it works compositionally. All right, and I'm going to put in the sky as well. And I'm using phthalo and ultramarine, kind of a mixture. And the reason I'm mixing in the phthalo is I want to differentiate the different blues. I have a warm blue up here. All right, this first, you can probably tell this first layer is fairly thin and I'm scrubbing it in so I can come over it with thicker paint. Okay, so this is a mixture of dioxazine purple and permanent rose, which is a color by Winsor & Newton. And so now I'm kind of coming in with this next level of light, working dark to light, just like I do with any painting really, and still just kind of scrubbing in the approximate colors and values. I can adjust all of these later, and as I said, it's very much an abstract kind of subject matter, so there's a lot of freedom to play around here. I think the key thing is keeping the value range of the clouds fairly narrow and also light too. Light in value and then not big value shifts in the sky. Sometimes if you stare at the clouds you can think that the darks are a lot darker than they really are. All right, before I go any further, I want to put in the lightest lights to see what they actually look like. Sometimes you have to make multiple passes, but there seems to be like some warm areas on top of these clouds. So I'm just going to start suggesting the light on top. I might want to make these in the background like pink, because if they're yellow it might bring them forward a little bit too much. All right, now I've got the whole panel covered. I'm going to start using number 6 synthetic flat. I'm going to do the sky first because I'm talking about clouds basically here. I want to show you guys how I go about painting clouds. What I'm going to do is start reinforcing all of the colors that I've already laid down, and I'm going to just start putting them in with more defined strokes, more purpose. And obviously I'm working, I'm working from the top, which is darker, to lighter as it goes down towards the top of the hill. Also warmer as it goes down. Although I'm seeing some purple in there as well. Interesting. And I like to have brushwork in the sky, but I don't want it to be distracting, and I don't want it to eliminate the feeling of sort of airiness that you get, with clouds and the sky, even a sky that has no clouds in it. If there's too much, if the brush strokes are if they're too thick and too noticeable, then you lose that airy quality. And I want to make sure that it feels like a sky. Okay, and there's definitely in the photographing. Oops, I don't know how I got that on my brush. I'm seeing some cerulean or phthalo, in the sky in here. Little hints of it in here. So I'm thinning I'm actually putting phthalo mixed with a bit of dioxazine purple. Okay, and down in here it definitely appears to be darker in here. All right, one nice thing to do is add little bits of clouds around the cloud, so it's just so that the edges are kind of soft and blurred into the sky, instead of having like really strong, rigid edges to your clouds, which is just not how clouds are. I know there's a bright area over here. I'm going to kind of play it down a little bit just because I don't want to draw the eye over to the edge so much. Rather keep it in this area. I find that vertical strokes in the clouds can be effective in like sort of creating form. A lot of times when you have visible brush strokes, when you don't have visible brush strokes, you don't really need to decide, what direction they're going to be going. But when they're visible, you have to make decisions about how you direct them or how you apply the brush strokes. And you can actually use the brush stroke, the direction of it, to create form. All right, so now I'm going to finish off the hills and the trees, and I am just going to try to use simple, strong brushwork, and I'm working dark to light, adding thicker paint, and I'm also adjusting the values of the hills here too. I kind of squinted at the image and decided that the hills needed to be a little bit darker. And then I'm just going to look for color shifts in the green, both of the hills and the trees. All right, so as you can see, the value of the clouds is definitely a high value. One thing I looked at was, when I was painting in the hills, I squinted at the image to see what the difference in value was between the sky and the hills. and there was definitely, you know, the hills were definitely darker. And then I scrubbed in the hills in such a way that I exposed some of the panel, so you can see some of the white of the panel coming through. I kind of like that look sometimes. And the way I do that is by adding medium, you know, to the mix of paint and then just kind of scrubbing it on there. And if it's going to be thin like that, I like there to be medium in it so that there's plenty of binder to make for a strong paint application or to have good adhesion to the panel. And then I just look for delicate shifts in the green in both the hills and also in the trees. All right, so I hope you guys enjoyed this little cloud painting demo. I think the takeaway for me on this whole thing is to keep the values light and also keep them narrow in range. So there's not a lot of extreme contrast, unless of course you've got like stormy skies or you're going for a particular effect. But most of the time, it seems like clouds are a lot higher in value than you think. So anyway, let me know what you think in the comments. As usual, a big thank you to my Patreon supporters. It's the Patreon support that keeps me making these videos. There's a Patreon link down below in case you want to check out my Patreon page. Other than that, stay creative, guys, and I will see you in the next video.